We're gonna roll out tonight. Destiny Squad. They see me rolling. Them hating. Patrolling. Try to catch me riding dirty. Try to catch me riding dirty. Trying to catch me riding dirty. That's not gonna happen. Chill. Hi, Destiny Squad. It's Friday. Weekend. How are you doing? I hope that you are excited that it is weekend. And of course, I hope you have something nice planned. But until then, we actually have something to talk about. So the topic for today is, before I go into the topic, what nice do you have planned for the weekend? Whatever you have planned, I hope that it's going to be something good. Because of course, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. It makes Jill a dull girl as well. So you need to have some fun, plan, go out, enjoy yourself, even stay at home, still do something that you really like doing. Okay, tonight is a really serious topic that we are dealing with. And the question is, why has the rate of domestic violence gone up? Because it is actually going up. When we talk about domestic violence, of course, we're talking about, we know that domestic violence include like violence, towards children and towards adult, towards man, towards woman. But in this case, we're talking about in a relationship setting, because the one towards violence towards children, which is so horrific, of course, that is for another topic, a different day. Okay, let's see if we can get into this. And remember, of course, if you want to ensure that I don't talk all night, because you know that I will just talk, or if you want to ensure that not only my opinion is heard, then of course, the WhatsApp number to call. If you are in the UK, it is 07-930-976644. Outside of the UK, it is +44 730-976688. And of course, that number is in the comment section. So if at any point you feel you have something to contribute, you think that I'm being biased or anything like that, you stop me, give me a ring and let me hear your opinion. But remember, when after the live is finished, it's not time for you to call at that time. So don't be calling me after the live is finished to say that you actually had something to contribute towards the topic. Because if you have something to contribute towards the topic at that time, it means that you should be putting it in the comments, right? All right. Of course, I'm just joking. Okay. So here goes. Of course, I'm going to do a little research. So this is what I've found. According to the American Journal of Emergency Medicine, the domestic violence cases have increased by between 25 to 33% globally in 2022. So, of course, this is something that is being experienced around the world. And of course, I actually look at, what's happening in Jamaica, because recently there have been an increase in the number of domestic violence, some of them fatally. So, it is something for us to talk about. And it's very important for me to start off by saying that domestic violence in a relationship is not always towards women. Men actually experience domestic violence as well. But it's also important to say that 95% of the domestic violence is usually towards the woman. According to the Daily Gleaner, in an article dated July 20, 2022, where a research was done into gender-based violence, it shows a high prevalence rate of 27.8%, with more than 1 in every 4 women in Jamaica experiencing intimate partner violence in their lifetime. Okay, so that's what the research has said. That's what the article has said. But what do we say? You know, sometimes when we talk about domestic violence, very serious topic that needs to be addressed. Sometimes when we talk about domestic violence, we tend to look only on, physical attack, like the person hitting you or something like that. But domestic violence or violence, abuse, is not just physical or sexual. There are different types of abuse, and it is still, violence, no matter how you look at it. So there are some that we tend to forget. And of course, I've written down a few. So we know about physical, we know about sexual, but there is also verbal or emotional abuse, and that is undermining. It comes in the form of undermining the person, controlling, manipulation, gaslighting, blaming, intimidating the person, and that person we are going to call the victim. So that's verbal or emotional abuse. There is another that is very similar to verbal and emotional abuse, and that one is mental or psychological abuse. So, of course, it's still mental, and this one is failing to value the individual, an abuse of power where the perpetrator places their opinion, their view, their judgment as superior to their victim. So that is where the person have no say. The person is always wrong. Whatever opinion that they give, it's never counted. That is mental or psychological abuse. Financial is also abuse. Financial abuse comes in the form of controlling all household finances, stealing or taking from the victim, restricting access to money, intentionally making victim credit score go down, or withholding money for basic necessities. So you find where the victim, you are the person working your money, but yet you cannot spend your money. Everything that you earn, and I'm just giving examples, everything that you earn has to be passed over to the other person, and the person decides how much you can spend and what goes where. In a way, remember that also comes under it. There's another that is hardly spoken of, and that is cultural or identity abuse. And for that one, it's a type of emotional abuse where a person uses their culture to control another person, where the person may criticize, belittle their partner's belief, or exert control over them. So this is, for example, where the person say, like, this is my culture, right? Men, for example, do not do household duties. That is just my culture. I will never do anything in the home. So what you find is that the man goes out to work, the lady goes out to work, but when it's in the home, the lady does all the household chores, take care of the children, because one partner thinks that this is my culture, you need to respect it. We don't do anything like that. Just like I have said, remember that abuse, domestic abuse, of course, men experience it as well. But it's very important for me to say that domestic abuse, I believe it's a choice. Why is it a choice? It is a choice because, yes, sometimes there are factors that cause the person to be that way. So if you know that something is causing you to act a certain way, then of course it means that you know that you should go out and get support for anything that is causing you to be a certain way. And I'm saying that because, if you have to say sorry, I believe that if you have to say sorry too many times for the same thing, then it is a decision that you have made to actually do the thing. And if for the victim, if you have to accept sorry for the same thing that is being done to you, abuse, violence, anything towards you, if you have to accept the apology for the same thing over and over, then of course it's a decision. And of course, I know that some people actually, I would say, put up with domestic abuse for different reasons. And of course, I am going to touch on that later on. All right. So, how can this domestic abuse stop? What is causing it? For some people, the factor is that they have experienced certain things. Say, for example, they could have come from a broken home. But remember, anything that I'm going to say, because I'm going to list some of them, remember, I am still saying that it is a choice for somebody to abuse another person. Reason being, if you know that you have that problem, then of course you need to go out and get help. But there are some things that the person may have experienced why they are behaving a certain way. And I have actually listed some of them, and these are what I have found. So some people may have experienced childhood trauma. There has been a history of early aggressive behavior, poor behavioral control, high emotional distress, antisocial beliefs and attitudes, exposure to violence and conflict in a family. So, yes, you grow up, you see violence in your home, you actually see relationships where one person abuses another, and you think that it is just in you that, you learn that if someone doesn't do what you want them to do, then in order to get them to do what you want them to do, then of course you have to use force. But just like I've said, even if you are from a broken home, even if you're from a home where that has gone on, you have the choice to make a conscious decision, that you don't want that to happen to you, that you want to change, you don't want to go down the same route. And if that is what, you really want to do, then of course you need to go out and get that help. Too often, sometimes you will hear people say, I didn't know what I was doing. I blocked out. But is that an excuse? How many times can you give the same excuse? Because if you're doing the same thing over and over, like I've said before, then, it's a decision that you have made to actually do it to another person. So there are 3 questions that I want to ask, and I'm going to elaborate. The questions to ask are, why do people stay in abusive relationships? Why are people hesitant to get involved when they witness domestic abuse? Is the law strict enough for domestic abuse? Okay. So let me see. Why are people hesitant to actually get involved in domestic abuse? How many times have you actually heard this saying that, is man and woman relationship, I'm not getting involved? You actually see one person beating up on another person. And because of your belief where you're thinking that, look, I am not going to get involved because later on they're going to get back together and then I am going to feel embarrassed. Or the person who you're trying to protect could turn around and actually, start abusing you, cursing you out, or everything like that. But when you look at it, you could look at it another way. I understand that point of view. But if nobody gets involved, and if everybody takes that stance, isn't that giving the abuser power? Because they know that nobody or very few people are going to get involved. Then they just, abuse the person in public, and then it continues because, they know that it's domestic affairs. We could even look at it, is the law strict enough when it comes on to domestic abuse? Because for some people, when they are actually going through certain things, they actually report it to the authority. But sometimes, they are not taken seriously. And I understand, I have to look at it another way, because sometimes when, for example, the police turns up to lock up the perpetrator, the victim turn around and, they change their mind. They refuse to give witness statement and everything like that. So you can see where, the police could get frustrated. So that is why sometimes you would get the impression that they don't take it seriously. Or sometimes, yes, they don't take it seriously, but in not taking it seriously enough, sometimes the person go home. Well, let me say, okay, some victims play around in that they change their minds, and because the police, the authority have experienced that type of victim, then when a serious victim comes up where they actually want the police to take action, the police does not really know whether to take it seriously or not. So when you look at it, I can understand. But unfortunately, in not actually acting fast enough, sometimes, people actually end up losing their life as a result of it. Recently, in Jamaica, there have been an increase in domestic violence. And to be honest with you, it is shocking. And sometimes we wonder, we were on the outside looking on. You're thinking, oh, why would people actually stay in, abusive relationship, domestic violence? They experience domestic violence over and over, yet they actually go back to the person, right? So there are what I've been reading, and I've realized that there are different reasons why people actually stay in abusive relationships. Of course, my opinion is that there should always be like a safe house for people for victims of domestic violence, where they can actually, where they can go and find shelter or everything like that. So these are what I've found why, the different reasons why people actually stay in um, domestic abusive relationships. Okay, so one reason is that they feel responsible. So it's like the person is saying, I did something wrong. I actually deserve, what the perpetrator is doing to me. So, that's one. Two is that some people actually downplay the level of abuse that they are getting. So it's like you're saying, yes, he beats me, but he doesn't actually do it often. Yes, he withholds the money, the person withholds the money, but sometimes I can steal it from his pocket. So it is not that bad. So you're downplaying the level of abuse that you are getting. Unfortunately, a lot of victims, I should say, actually hide the level of abuse that they get. Sometimes they hide it from family, sometimes they hide it from friends. So, in a lot of cases, family members and friends who could help actually were not aware of the level of abuse that was going on until it's too late, or until the victim finally decides that enough is enough and they try to get out of that situation. Another reason why people stay in abusive relationships is lack of support, and another, financial resources, meaning the person does not have the money. Sometimes the perpetrator is also the breadwinner. So what you find is that the person, the victim, actually, if they should get out of that relationship, then they find that actually, they have no money to survive on. And as a result of that, some of them choose to actually stay in that abusive relationship, which actually, it is a shame when you actually look into it. But yes, that is what another reason why what I have found why people actually stay in abusive relationship. So yes, so I've also found three more. So I've said financial resources is why people stay in abusive relationship. Another that I've found is fears for their children. So sometimes what you will find is that, okay, the man and the woman, they have been together for X number of years. They have children together. In most cases, it is the lady. So, but remember, I must stress that men actually experience domestic abuse as well. But in 95% of the cases, it is the lady who is the victim. So, for the purpose of this one, when we say fears for the children, I am going to give an example that perhaps, the man is the breadwinner. So, the lady is thinking that, okay, if I live with the children, I will not have anything to feed them. I will not have enough, to send them to school or anything like that. So, it's like some ladies, they stay in it because, they think that they are making a sacrifice to keep the family together and to ensure that the children actually have education and that they have food. Another reason, no safe space for them to go. And the last one, which is a dangerous one, is where the person fear for their life. So people actually stay in relationships, in failed relationships or in domestic abusive relationships, because they fear that if they try to actually get out of that situation, then of course, they could end up losing their life. Unfortunately, that's what I have been reading a lot about in the Jamaican setting recently. But I'm going to say something. And ladies, I know that perhaps you're not going to like what I'm about to say, but please, if you do not like the man, you don't want to be with the man, stop taking their money. You need to stop taking their money. You cannot meet a man say you meet the man on Monday, and by the Friday, your rent is due, and by the next week, Monday, you have nails to do, you have your hair to do, you have everything like that. Look, when you get into a relationship, you need to take time to know the person. Because, look, if you find yourself in that situation where the man is spending on you, in some cases, the man actually sees you as a property. So it means that, look, they have made some investment in you, and by the time you want to leave, they have done all that investment already in you. So you trying to get out of the situation, to actually get out of the relationship, they see it as a disrespect, because you have to understand that this word ego, and in certain cases, you have to blame it on yourself, because you should take time to know somebody before you start, taking their money. Because once you start taking the money, they start taking care of you. By the time you start seeing the red flags, in some cases, it is too late. By the time you try to get out of it, then of course, that's when it actually turned violent. So what should you do? Things are called red flag for a reason. Never rush into anything. You should actually take time to know the person before you actually make certain kinds of commitment. Because if you don't take time, if you just rush into it, by the time the problems start coming out, then of course you will realize that you are already trapped, you're too deep. Certain things that you have found out about the partner, you realize that it's a dangerous situation if you ever try to get out of it. So, of course, like I've said, take time to know the person. If you like what you're seeing, then of course you go deeper. If you don't like what you're seeing, then of course take two steps backward or don't take the money. If you want to just have the person on a friendship level, you keep it like that. But you can't have it both ways, where you want all that money and you don't want to do anything, give anything in return. So that is what I think, right? So we say, okay, take time to know the person. Sometimes some of us see the red flags, but we actually go still into the relationship, hoping or thinking that we can actually change the other person. Remember, I have given some of the reasons why people actually, are angry, why they behave a certain way. But remember, all those things that I have said, those are the red flags. Where when you see that happening, then you can make the decision whether to take two steps backwards or whether you want to continue going going on with the relationship. And I'm going to repeat what are some of the signs, and you actually decide that you should look for and decide whether or not you want to go into the relationship. So if you see the person displaying certain behaviors, if that is not what you want. So for example, if you see the person being controlling, meaning it's at the early stage of the relationship where you're actually getting to know each other and you are looking for certain signs, right? To know if that's what you really want. If you find that the person is controlling and you don't want to be controlled, then of course you should know what to do. It's a decision. If the person gets angry easily, you have to make a decision as well. Do you want to go forward? Is that something that you're comfortable with? What do you want to do? Right? If the person is, has a history of being abusive, aggressive, so you hear where the person is talking about what they did in previous relationships and stuff. Sometimes you could even listen to how the person is talking on the telephone or anything like that. Then you can have an idea of what type of person you are dealing with. And then you have to make the decision whether or not you want to continue with that person. When it comes on, controlling people, if you see a person being controlling, remember that a person who is like that, it can lead to different things. So you have to think for yourself. I always say, if someone is controlling, I always say, look, control yourself, control your finances, control your anger, control your health, but don't try to control people's girl pitney or try to control people's boy pitney, right? That is not what it is about. If you remember, if you look at it, and this is really, really important. When God actually created Adam to make Eve, do you realize where the rib was taken from? There is a serious message, a very important message in that a lot of us actually missed. The rib was taken from Adam's side. It means that the lady, together, you should complement each other. It means that you should support each other. It means that you should protect each other. So if you realize it is side by side, nothing was taken from the head where you try to control one person. Nothing was taken from the feet where you think that you're better off than the other person, or where you think that the person is not is beneath you. God has already set that up already for us to follow. And I don't know how many of you had really looked into it and realized that, look, actually, it was there already. So, this is what I have to say. You have to know within yourself, what exactly do you want? If you look into yourself and you realize that, okay, I am the perpetrator. For some reason, all the different abuses that have been listed, or some of them subconsciously, you have been doing them. Remember, I say that your responsibility is to get help. Your responsibility, if you look into it and you realize that, no, actually, I have been doing this because I have been looking at abuse as being only physical, but actually I have been withholding money as well. I have been um I have been emotional abuse I've been doing to the next person. If there has been mental abuse based on the words that you have been saying to the other person, your responsibility is to get help. And it's never too late. If you think that the person is triggering, something that the person does is actually triggering you to be that way. But remember, I'm still saying that domestic abuse is a choice. But if you realize that something that the other person is doing is offending you, remember that there is power in communication. You talk about it. If necessary, you seek counseling. If you cannot agree, you go your separate ways. Because, taking advantage, like I've said, of somebody's boy child, taking advantage of someone's girl child to the extent where you want to treat them like children, to the extent where you are threatening them that if they ever try to get away from you, what you are going to do, it is not right. And when you look into it, remember, if whatever you would not like for somebody to do to your boy child, to you do to your girl child, your children I'm talking about, don't do it to somebody else. Like I have said, your partner, the rib was taken from the side. It's side by side. It is not a control thing. Nobody should have the power to actually, beat somebody down just to get them submissive. If the person is not going to be submissive naturally, you doing it by force is not going to command respect. If you demand respect, it's not going to last. And of course, if you realize that the qualities that you're looking for, the person does not exert it, then of course, leave that person and try to find someone who, you are on the same level. Put it that way, to say that what you want is what the other person wants. And, what you have to give, the other person is willingly accepting it. So this is what these are just, my thoughts. And I hope that, of course, I got it right. I hope that at least, you would have picked something from what I have said, because this domestic abuse, it is not good, right? It is not good. And when you kill out each other, does that make you feel any better? Because in most of the cases, one party ends up in prison. And unfortunately, if children are involved, one party is in prison, one is in the grave. What kind of children are we raising, right? How do you expect those children to grow up? Sometimes they grow up with that aggression, right? So we have to be careful. We have to change it around, not just for us, but we have to change it for the generation to come. Let people see that healthy relationships are still around, and that, look, if people don't agree, people should be free to move on from other people. But like I've said, ladies, don't take the men money if you actually don't mean, to actually stay with them. Boops days are finished. Men are serious nowadays. Sometimes you will lose your life if you play around like that. And I am not saying that, in no case am I saying that that is an excuse for any man to do anything to any lady. Until I see you again, meaning I upload either another video or do a live stream. Oh, before I go, I must remind you that tomorrow morning I'll be doing a live streaming on the state of emergency that is being considered in Jamaica. So what is that about? I'm going to look into what are some of the causes, I'm going to look at how deportation may have played a role into that as well. Have a lovely weekend, guys. Be good to yourself. Do something this weekend that you are going to be very proud of. Take care of yourselves, guys. Bye. Thank you so much for your support as well. Thank you. Bye.